Hey guys, what's up? Dragonstar here, and today I have a little bit more of a different video continuing down with the line I was working with on how to win mid game. This is going to be very specific to the scout war. This does not mean scouts into one of the transitions that you can do. It's basically how to transition if both of the players are playing scouts. There are three scenarios that you'll run into when playing scouts: when you're walling, when you're semi-walled, which means you have to kind of build up a base where there is a little bit of walling involved, but it's going to take a while to get yourself walled up. No wall means you cannot wall. This map is horrible. There is no potential of walling. And how do I play in every single one of these scenarios is what this flowchart will give you guys. So my option for opening scouts: always make 3 to 5 scouts based on what your opponent is doing. In a scout war, make 2-3 spearsmen on top of it. This is a rough range of how many scouts and spears you want to do. If you're playing the most conservative route, go for 3 scouts and 2 spearmen. On the upper limit, it's 5 scouts and 3 spearmen. This is the curve I would use the scout numbers in. And if the games are passive, you go for walls, 12 to 14 farms, and then you try to go to castle age if the map is walled and both of you cannot pressure each other. And depending on the civilization, the matchup, the map, the gold position, the hills, the momentum you gained in the early and mid feudal age based on how many villagers you have killed, you can transition into one of these 3 scenarios. You can either play crossbow, you can either play cavalry archers, or you can actually play skirmishers. And each of these scenarios basically requires you to recognize what your civilization is good at compared to what your opponent's civilization is good at. So I'll go over this first line. So let's see if I can generate a map. I'll go for just your standard Saracen, Arabia, and put it on all visible, because I'll just give an example of what this might look like when I'm playing scouts. So this map is, I would categorize it as semi-wall because my resources is kind of in the front exposed. So I'm going to use the flowchart. I'll go back to the flowchart and then look at which variation of the semi-wall opening I want to do. Explaining with the wall meta, these are the 3 options. In semi-wall, there's a lot more flexibility on how you actually can play. There's one range archer follow-up, which is your most common with archer openings and crossbow openings. Scouts into late skirmishes when you actually don't have the similar unit composition as your opponent. You're playing against something like Britons, where they have better crossbows than you, but you have Lithuanians, so you have better skirmishers than them. So you can play scouts into late skirmishers in that scenario. Most of the time, you're better off playing the archer route if your civilization has the bonuses for switching into archers in a scout war. I would recommend sticking to that. In my notes, what I've written, you go for 5 to 7 farms, 1 range, move out with 3-4 scouts, and 3 archers get fletching on the way. This is your move out timing. Around 12-13 minutes is when you'll have your scout numbers, and archers will be allowing you to move out at around 15 minutes with spearmen mixed in. Semi-walls should be completed by that stage of the game. And when you move out and hit the opponent, he cannot deal with your archer timing if he is not mirroring you. This is why this approach for going for 5 to 7 farms into the archery range for the gold mining, if you look back at the build orders I've taught, I'll maybe make an explanation of how to implement the build order using this flowchart. You go for archers, and then once you're in castle age, you go for ballistics and hit the wood line of your opponent, because in a crossbow war, if you hit someone's wood line, or a range unit war, you hit someone's wood line, this is the most amount of value you can get out of your units in castle age. Ballistics allows you to just win in a gold unit war composition. If your opponent is playing crossbow or cavalry archers, you go for ballistics. If he's playing skirmishers, you go for mangonels. Skirm switch if you have map control. So this is when, after getting ballistics, you've both played crossbow and both have played ballistics, you go for skirmisher switch if you have the map control. Siege if you don't have the map control. So even game, he might have taken more damage or done more damage to you. This would be where this will look like. So with a map like this, I would probably play scouts, make 3-4 scouts, maybe make some walls like how I explained, to wall myself rather than go for the big box walls. might go for the wood line in the back, make a choke point from this wood line. Berries can be out in the open, some walls like this to protect the berries, production buildings in the front, some towers, some walls around the left side of this base, and scouts, archers, and move across the map and hit my opponent. His map also is kind of semi-wallable because he needs to wall this, and make his production buildings either to protect the gold mine or in front of the berries to protect the berries, depending on whichever approach he wants to go for. We can already see him walling this part of the map as well if he wants to go for a bigger wall. But in these particular scenarios, I recognize the map looking at like a semi-wall situation. So I'm going to play according to that. And scouts into late skirmishes, I already explained. 2 archer range into castle age is when both of you are mirroring each other. They are most of the time in situations where there is still some potential to do damage. So you go for scouts, you go for archer switch, you both play one range, you both go for fletching, and then you realize both of you are mirroring each other. So there's 2 options. Either you commit to feudal edge or you go to castle edge. And while going to castle edge, you can add the second archery range on the way up. If you're going the castle edge approach, if you're playing the feudal edge approach, you can play 2 range archers if resources are exposed. Expo rules basically means you go hit their wood line, and scouts into late skirmishes is the follow-up for this. Food bonus, slow civilizations, skirm monk if map is good. If your map is bad, skirm CA for map control, skirm knights if you have good knights with the combination of your skirmishes. These would be some of the situations you can rely on. Jumping back to this full feudal approach, both of you cannot really secure one of your resources. So looking at this map, I cannot properly secure my gold, and if I do not make a correct base layout, I will not be able to completely protect my resources if I don't have a map where I can defend it. I'll just load up a couple more again. Gold and berries in the back with the wood line in the back. So this is the wall map. So I would play this map like scouts into crossbow, scouts into cavalry archers. These would be the thought process I'll have when I'm playing this map, when I look at this map, because it's going to be very difficult for my opponent to hit anything compared to his map. I mean, he has a semi-wall map versus my full wall map. So I'll play my wall approach compared to his semi-wall approach, which he will go for. No walls are exception, rarely happen in the current generation of Arabia. You can most of the time just learn these 2 rules I have for semi-wall and wall openings, where you go for 12-14 farms and then go for crossbow and castle edge, or you go for 5-7 farms into one of these 4 transition timings you can look out for. But just to have the bases covered, the no wall approach basically means you're just making army non-stop. You do not go for any transitions. You tower your resources so that you can protect one of them, and the other ones you just protect with full army commitment. Full scouts, not a good idea because they can make spearmen. The best approach is 1 range archers, fast switch into bloodlines, and then just idle your town centers to continuously make army from your stable, your archery range. You add a second archery range while you're doing all of this, and then you can add even a second stable and just make army non-stop until you do enough damage. And once you do enough damage and have the map control, you can definitely go up to the next stage. So it just depends on how you want to approach this. But a little bit of a different video. I can give a little bit more examples of generating a couple of maps and plugging in this equation. I can even go for random civilizations. Portuguese versus Wei, I'll play scouts into archers, and let's see the map. So this is a semi-wall map because, again, I can connect some of these walls, always make a choke point around my base to protect myself and completely shut down the enemy's aggression. If I want to play it a little bit more open, like let's say you don't see as much walling, he can still choke point his resources to the town center. So this map is on the borderline of being an open map. So I can definitely think about playing a very heavy aggressive feudal age just looking at this map. So those could be some of the decisions I can take using my rules for semi-wall. I'll probably play the semi-wall and then realize that the map is open, and then play 2 range archers full feudal approach, get bloodlines and get all the blacksmith technologies. Or if I'm already playing the no wall approach, I'll either choose one of these 3 routes. Full scouts usually not viable for most civilizations, but some civs have the approach of doing it, like Kittans. Some fast scout civs, Khmer and stuff can also do it. I'll just continue loading up a couple more games just to plug in how I would approach these matchups. Gold safe, wood safe, berry exposed. So this is semi-wall. Semi-wall basically means I'm using these rules. If he is full walling, I'll plug into its full wall. So he can actually wall himself completely and he should be fine, but he's Mezzo, so Scout War rules do not apply in these situations. This is only against opponents playing Scouts. So every other scenario, all of these situations won't make sense, but the flowchart for specifically Scout War will work like this. Hopefully you guys learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next one.